Welcome back to the final episode of Beatrice's story. If you missed episodes 1 and 2, go watch them now so you're not lost. This is where everything comes together. But before we go, make sure you're subscribed to my channel because I post interesting stories daily that you don't want to miss. Beatrice stood in Gis's office, her hands shaking as his words echoed in her mind. 2 months, maybe 3. The ruthless Mafia boss who'd saved her, fathered her child, become her entire world, was dying. Say something, Jisu whispered, his voice cracking in a way she'd never heard. Please, Beatrice. Anything. She looked at him. Really looked. The weight he'd lost, making his sharp features even more severe. The exhaustion carved into every line of his face. The way he held himself like each breath was a battle. He'd been carrying this death sentence alone, protecting her even as his body failed him. I'm still angry with you, Beatrice said quietly, for not believing me about the pregnancy, for throwing me onto the streets when I was terrified and alone, for all the pain you caused. Jisu's face fell, accepting the condemnation. I understand. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But Beatrice interrupted, stepping closer. I don't want to waste whatever time you have left being angry. Kido deserves to know his father. And her voice broke. I don't want you to die thinking I hate you. Because I don't. Despite everything, despite how hard I tried not to, I love you. The confession hung between them, heavy and real. Jisu's eyes filled with tears. You love me? Even after everything I did to you? I tried not to, Beatrice admitted, her own tears falling freely now. I tried so hard to protect my heart, to keep you at a distance. But watching you with Kido, seeing how devoted you are, how much you've changed, Jisu, you're a good man who made a terrible mistake out of fear. And I understand fear. I've lived with it since my parents died. Jisu closed the distance between them in 2 powerful strides, pulling her into his arms carefully, like she was precious and breakable. Beatrice melted into him, feeling his heart racing against her chest, his breath warm against her hair. I love you, he said into her braids. I've loved you since that night you fell asleep on my shoulder on the train. I just didn't recognize it then. And now that I finally have you, I have to leave you. Don't. Beatrice pulled back to look into his eyes. Don't talk about leaving. Not tonight. Tonight, let's just be together. You, me, and Kido. A family. Jisu cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. Marry me. Beatrice's breath caught. What? I know I'm dying. I know it's cruel to ask you to become a widow before you've even been a wife. But I need you to know that if I had time, if I had years, I would spend every single one loving you. Marry me, Beatrice. Let me be your husband for whatever time I have left. Beatrice looked into his intense eyes and saw everything. Regret, love, desperate hope, fear. This dangerous man who'd been a stranger months ago was asking her to be his wife, knowing he'd leave her far too soon. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. They married 3 days later in Jisu's compound garden with only baby Kido in his carrier, Mrs. Park the new housekeeper, and Jisu's attorney as witnesses. Beatrice wore a simple white dress that hid her still-healing body from childbirth. Jisu wore a suit that hung slightly loose on his thinning frame. They spoke vows through tears, promising to love each other for whatever time remained. When Jisu kissed her, Beatrice tasted salt from both their tears and felt the trembling in his weakening hands. He was fading already, the disease stealing his strength day by day. But in that moment, holding each other as winter gave way to early spring, they were completely happy. The following weeks were the most beautiful and heartbreaking of Beatrice's life. Jisu arranged everything. Financial security for her and Kido that would last generations. The boutique fully funded with expansion capital, investments and properties that would support them forever. He recorded video after video for Kido. First birthday messages, graduation speeches, wedding day advice, random thoughts about honor and strength and being a good man. Beatrice would find him sometimes, sitting with Kido in his arms, crying silently as the baby slept against his chest. I'll miss everything, he told her one night, voice breaking. His first word, his first step, his first day of school. Everything that matters. He'll know you, Beatrice promised fiercely. I'll make sure he knows every single thing about you. How brave you are, how strong, how much you loved him. They spent every possible moment together. Jisoo reduced his criminal operations to almost nothing, delegating to lieutenants who'd waited years for more authority. His mornings were for Kido, holding him, talking to him in Korean and Swahili, singing lullabies that made Beatrice's heart shatter. His afternoons were for resting, the exhaustion overwhelming him more each day. His evenings were for Beatrice, talking for hours, making love carefully when he had strength, simply holding each other when he didn't. "I'm not afraid of dying," Jisoo told her one evening as they lay in bed, Beatrice's head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I'm afraid of leaving you alone, of Kido growing up without a father, of all the moments I'll miss." "We'll be okay," Beatrice said, even though she wasn't sure she believed it. "You've made sure of that. And you'll always be with us." In every video, every memory, every time Kido smiles and looks exactly like you. 6 weeks after their wedding, Jisoo could barely leave the bed. The occasional cough had become constant and wet, rattling in his chest. His breathing was labored even with oxygen support. His skin had taken on a gray pallor that terrified Beatrice every time she looked at him. The doctor came daily now, adjusting medications, monitoring vitals, preparing Beatrice for the inevitable. "It could be days," Dr. Kim told her quietly one afternoon while Jisoo slept. "Maybe a week at most. His heart is failing faster than we expected." "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Kong. There's nothing more we can do, except keep him comfortable." Beatrice nodded, unable to speak around the crushing weight in her chest. Mrs. Kong. She'd been his wife for 6 weeks, and soon she'd be his widow. That evening, as Beatrice sat beside Jisoo's bed with Kido in her arms, Jisoo stirred awake. His eyes, once so sharp and dangerous, were clouded with pain and medication. "Beatrice," he whispered, "come closer." She moved to sit on the edge of the bed, Kido making small baby sounds between them. "I need to tell you something," Jisoo said, his voice barely audible. "About your uncle." Beatrice stiffened. "What about him?" "I've been working with investigators since you came back, tracking his movements, gathering evidence of what he did." He coughed violently, and Beatrice held water to his lips. "He's in Tanzania. They found him 2 days ago. He'll be extradited next week." Jisoo continued with effort. "I wanted to make sure he couldn't hurt you again, that Kido would be safe. My lawyers have everything. The money transfers to Mrs. Han, the poison he gave her, all of it. Your uncle will go to prison for a very long time, Beatrice. I made absolutely sure of it." Fresh tears spilled down Beatrice's face. Even while dying, he'd been protecting them. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." "Take care of our son," Jisoo said, his hand reaching weakly for Kido's tiny fingers.
"Tell him about me."
"Tell him his father loved him more than anything in this world." "I will. I promise." They sat like that for hours. A family suspended in time, holding on to each other as if love alone could stop what was coming. The next morning brought unexpected news. Beatrice woke to her phone ringing. Jisoo's lawyer calling with an update. "Your uncle was arrested at Dar es Salaam airport yesterday. He's being extradited to Korea tomorrow. The trial will proceed quickly given the overwhelming evidence." Beatrice looked at Jisoo, who was awake and listening weakly from the bed. "He'll want to be there," she told the lawyer, "for the trial." "Mrs. Kong, I don't think that's physically possible." "I'll be there," Jisoo interrupted, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "Even if they have to wheel me in on a hospital bed, I'll be there." 3 days later, Uncle James was arraigned in Seoul. Beatrice sat in the courtroom, Jisoo beside her in a wheelchair, oxygen tank attached, looking like death itself, but present. Kido was with Mrs. Park at home. James looked smaller somehow, diminished. When he saw Beatrice, something ugly twisted across his face. "You did this," James hissed as guards led him to the defendant's table. "You destroyed your own family." "You tried to kill my baby," Beatrice said, her voice steady and cold as ice. "You paid someone to poison me. You're not my family. You never were." The trial lasted 2 days. Mrs. Han testified, weeping as she described how James had manipulated her, shown her forged medical documents, paid her 2 million won to spike Beatrice's drinks with poison. The prosecution presented devastating evidence. Bank records, The vial of poison recovered from Mrs. Han's home, medical records showing toxins in Beatrice's bloodstream. Jisoo's testimony was brief. He could barely speak, but it was powerful. He described finding Beatrice in premature labor, almost losing both her and Keto, their baby's month in the NICU, fighting for every breath. This man, Jisoo said, his voice weak but absolutely clear, tried to murder my wife and son. He nearly succeeded. I'm dying, and I won't see my son grow up. But I'll die knowing he can't hurt them anymore. The courtroom went silent. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, human trafficking. The judge sentenced James to 20 years in prison. As guards led him away, James looked back at Beatrice one final time. You'll regret this, he spat. You'll die alone. I already have everything I need, Beatrice interrupted calmly. A son I love, a husband who loves me, a life I built myself. You have nothing. You'll die in prison with nothing. That's justice. James screamed obscenities as guards dragged him away, but Beatrice didn't flinch. She just held Jisoo's hand and felt, for the first time since her parents died, truly free. Mrs. Han's trial was separate. Given her cooperation and evidence that she'd been deceived, she received a reduced sentence of 3 years with possibility of parole. She apologized tearfully to Beatrice in court, but Beatrice couldn't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She still made a choice, Beatrice told Jisoo on the way home. She still took money to drug a pregnant woman. I'm glad she got some punishment. You're stronger than you know, Jisoo said, squeezing her hand weakly. After the trial, Jisoo's condition declined rapidly. The stress and exertion had accelerated everything. Dr. Kim moved into the compound, monitoring him constantly. Hospice nurses came and went. The end was very close now. Everyone could feel it approaching. Beatrice barely left his side. She slept in a chair next to his bed, woke when he stirred, helped him drink when he could, held his hand when he couldn't. Keto's crib was in the room now, so Jisoo could hear his son, even when too weak to hold him. Beatrice, Jisoo whispered one evening, his breathing labored despite the oxygen mask. I need to tell you something. I'm not afraid anymore. Good, Beatrice said, gripping his hand tightly. You shouldn't be afraid. I'm grateful, he continued, each word an effort. For every moment. You gave me the best part of my life. You and Keto, you're everything I didn't know I needed. Don't, Beatrice sobbed. Please don't say goodbye yet. Not goodbye, Jisoo smiled weakly. Just thank you. For loving me, for forgiving me our beautiful son. They stayed like that through the night. Beatrice holding his hand, listening to his breathing grow shallower, feeling his pulse get weaker and weaker. Keto woke at dawn, crying for his morning feeding, and Beatrice brought him to the bed. Jisoo's eyes fluttered open. With tremendous effort, he lifted one hand to touch Keto's cheek. My son, he whispered. I love you. Always. Keto grabbed Jisoo's finger, holding tight with that instinctive baby grip, and Beatrice watched her husband's face transform with pure joy and absolute heartbreak. He knows you, Beatrice said through her tears. He'll always know you. Jisoo's breathing changed then, became wet and rattling in a way that made Beatrice's heart stop. Dr. Kim appeared at the door, took one look, and came to check vitals quickly. It's time, Dr. Kim said gently. His heart is failing. It won't be long now. Beatrice climbed carefully into the bed, Keto between them, and they lay like that. A family for the last time. Jisoo's hand rested on Keto's stomach, Beatrice's hand covering his. I love you, Beatrice whispered. I love you so much. Love you, Jisoo breathed. Both. So much. His eyes closed. His breathing slowed. Beatrice felt his pulse flutter weakly under her fingers, growing fainter. This was it. The end they'd been dreading. Beatrice opened her mouth to say something, anything, when the door burst open. Dr. Kim rushed back in with another man behind him. Younger, urgent-looking, carrying a briefcase. Wait, the stranger said firmly. Don't give up yet. I'm Dr. Chen, cardiac specialist from Singapore. Dr. Kim contacted me about your case. He moved to Jisoo's bedside, checking vitals rapidly. There's a new experimental treatment. Gene therapy combined with stem cell transplants. It's extremely risky. Only 30% success rate. But it's a chance. He's dying, Beatrice said through her tears.
Right now. I can see that, Dr. Chen said.
But if we can stabilize him, get him to my facility in Singapore, there's a chance. He looked at Beatrice seriously. I won't lie to you. The treatment is brutal, might not work, could even accelerate his death. But it's a chance. Without it, he has hours. With it, he might have years. Beatrice looked at Jisoo, whose eyes had fluttered open at the commotion. Jisoo, did you hear that? There's a chance. Jisoo whispered weakly. How much? 30% that you survive the treatment and recover significantly, Dr. Chen said honestly. 40% that it doesn't work and you die within months anyway. 30% that you die during the treatment itself. But I've seen miracles, Mr. Kong. I've seen patients worse than you walk out of my clinic. Jisoo looked at Beatrice, then at Keto sleeping peacefully between them. What do you think? Beatrice thought about life without him. About raising Keto alone. About all the moments he'd miss. First words, first steps, first days of school. About growing old without him. About the videos he'd recorded because he thought he'd never be there. Fight, she said fiercely. Fight for us. Fight for Keto. I don't care about the odds. If there's any chance at all, we take it. Jisoo smiled weakly. Then let's fight. The next 6 months were absolute hell. Jisoo was airlifted to Singapore, barely clinging to life. Beatrice and Keto followed, living in a hotel near the medical facility. The treatment was brutal beyond description. Genetic modifications, stem cell injections, medications that made Jisoo violently ill. There were days Beatrice thought they'd made a terrible mistake. Days Jisoo begged her to let him stop, to let him die peacefully. Days she sat in hospital waiting rooms praying to gods she wasn't sure existed. Keto turned 6 months old in a Singapore hotel room. Beatrice missed her boutique's first anniversary. Her entire world narrowed to hospital rooms, doctor consultations, and holding Jisoo's hand through another excruciating night. But slowly, impossibly slowly, things began to change. Jisoo's color improved slightly. His breathing eased. His cough lessened. After 3 months of treatment, he could sit up without help. After 4 months, he could walk with assistance. After 5 months, Dr. Chen cautiously said the word they'd been terrified to hope for. Remission. What? Beatrice stared at him in disbelief. What does that mean exactly? It means the treatment worked, Dr. Chen said, smiling broadly. The genetic modifications took hold. His heart function is improving dramatically. His lungs are healing. He's not cured. He'll need monitoring for the rest of his life, maintenance treatments, careful management. But Mr. Kong, you're going to live. Beatrice burst into tears. Jisoo pulled her into his arms that were stronger now, steadier, and they held each other while Keto babbled happily between them, oblivious to the miracle unfolding. I'm going to see him grow up, Jisoo whispered into Beatrice's hair. I'm going to see everything. They stayed in Singapore another month while Dr. Chen ensured the improvements held. Then finally they went home. Korea in late summer was beautiful. Jisoo stood in their garden, breathing deeply without oxygen support for the first time in months. Keto was in his arms, bigger now, more alert, reaching for his father's face with grabbing hands. Dada, Keto babbled clearly. Jisoo froze completely. Did he just say? His first word. Beatrice laughed through happy tears. You're here for his first word. Jisoo kissed Keto's head, then reached for Beatrice, pulling her close. They stood like that in the garden. A family that had fought death and won, holding each other as summer turned to autumn. The boutique had thrived in Beatrice's absence. Grace and Mina had managed brilliantly. Jisoo's operations had continued under his lieutenant's leadership. Everything they'd built had survived. But more importantly, they had survived. 6 months later, Beatrice stood with Jisoo at his parents' graves he'd avoided for years. He'd reconciled with his estranged family, made peace with his past, rebuilt bridges he thought were burned forever. I never thought I'd be here, Jisoo said quietly, staring at the headstones. I thought I'd die before I could make things right. But you didn't die, Beatrice said, taking his hand. You fought. You won. We won, Jisoo corrected, pulling her close. I couldn't have done it without you. Keto toddled between them, walking now his latest milestone, and grabbed both their hands. They stood like that in the cemetery. A family that had survived betrayal, poisoning, attempted murder, and terminal illness. A family that had earned their happiness through blood, tears, and refusing to give up. That evening, back home, they gathered in the living room. Jisoo pulled up a file on his laptop. All the videos he'd recorded when he thought he was dying. Should we delete them? Beatrice asked. No, Jisoo said thoughtfully. Let's keep them. Show Keto when he's older. Let him know how much I loved him even when I thought I'd never see him grow up. Let him know that love is worth fighting for. Beatrice rested her head on his shoulder, the same way she'd fallen asleep on that train that felt like a lifetime ago, and watched their son play with blocks on the floor. I have something to tell you, Beatrice said quietly. Jisoo looked at her curiously. What is it? I'm pregnant. Jisoo stared at her, shock and overwhelming joy flooding his face. You're having another baby? Due in 7 months, Beatrice said. And this time, her voice broke with happy tears. This time you'll be here for everything. Jisoo pulled her into his arms, both of them crying, both of them laughing, both overwhelmed by the impossible gift of a future they'd almost lost. Keto looked up from his blocks, saw his parents crying, and toddled over to hug their legs. Mama.
Dada.
Yes, baby, Beatrice said, scooping him up. Mama and Dada. Forever. 2 years later, Beatrice stood in her boutique, now 3 locations across Seoul, watching her fashion show finale. Models walked the runway in her designs. Cameras flashed. Critics applauded. She'd built an empire from absolute nothing. Jisoo sat in the front row, their daughter sleeping against his chest, Keto on his lap pointing excitedly at the pretty dresses. He caught Beatrice's eye across the room and mouthed, I love you. Beatrice mouthed it back, remembering the frightened girl who'd run away with nothing but hope. The girl who'd fallen asleep on a dangerous stranger's shoulder and woken up in a new life. The woman who'd fought for love even when love seemed impossible. She'd lost so much. Her parents, her innocence, her naive belief that the world was fair. But she'd gained everything that mattered. A husband who loved her fiercely, children she adored, a career she'd built with her own hands, strength she'd earned through fire. As the final model took the runway and the crowd rose in standing ovation, Beatrice looked at her family and smiled. This was her happily ever after. Not perfect, not easy, but earned. And that made it worth everything. Thank you for following Beatrice and Jisoo's incredible journey from betrayal to love, from despair to hope, from near death to life. Their story proves that sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures, and that real love is always worth fighting for. What do you think of their story? Drop your comments below. Did you expect Jisoo to survive? Were you satisfied with Uncle James's punishment? Let me know your thoughts and how you'll rate the story on a scale of 1 to 10. If you love this story, give this video a like,